Now here's the fun part, we're gonna make it all mucky. Can't have a clean tank, so we are going over with a very heavy coat of AK Interactive Brown wash. And it's going over 100% of the tank, and it's going to add some grime to the tank. It's also going to shade everything. It's going to shade our 3 colors we use for the camo. It's going to shade the tools, and it's going to shade the tracks. So put it everywhere. You don't want to let it pool too much. You do want a even coat. So spread it out as much as you need. After everything is dry, which should take about an hour or 2 depending on how overzealous you were with the wash, now we're going to wipe everything off using a combination of an old t-shirt and Q-tips, cotton swabs for those hard to reach areas. And the gloss we put on previously will help protect the paint so it doesn't get darkened too much by the wash. It also makes the wash easier to take off. On the sides of the tank, we do want to go with an up and down motion to more replicate the look of streaks from rain and dirt coming, naturally vertically down the side of the tank. Once the enamel wash is fully cured and removed, apply a little bit more gloss to wherever the decals are going to go and place said decals. You can actually apply these before the wash, but you have to seal them really, really well with about 3 or 4 coats of gloss medium, gloss acrylic, to make sure that the wash doesn't go around the edges of the decals, or even worse, get underneath them. It's a little safer to apply them afterwards, and if needed, you can carefully go over with a little bit of wash if you want to darken them up. The area inside the road wheels does need a bit more grime, and so I'm just stippling on some random colors here. I honestly forgot exactly what I used. I just used browns and some yellowish brown, so it was probably Vallejo model color, Camo black brown, then I think one of the colors I did use was Vallejo Panzer Ace's dark mud, followed by khaki. Yeah, I think that was the combo. But we just want some random brown colors to add a bit more texture. The stippling action gives a little bit more texture to it rather than if we were to brush it on. The pattern's more random and it leaves a slightly raised surface to the paint. Next, we go back to the hull for a little bit more weathering. I have many colors of the AK Interactive streaking grimes and washes, and I just grabbed some somewhat at random. The colors aren't too important. I just wanted some browns, and I grabbed a green, and the color you're seeing here is a dust effect for a lighter color. And what we're doing is just doing vertical lines up and down the sides of the tank and the skirts and the turret. And the idea is just to create the kind of streaking you would get from a dirty vehicle that's, seen some rain and stuff, and the grime has sloughed off the side. So vertical lines here and there. We want to leave blank spaces between them and keep the lines fairly small, but it adds a little bit more dimension to the tank. And then once it's dry, which since we're not applying a thick wash, should dry fairly quickly in about 15 minutes, we remove it like we did with the wash, except we don't want to remove all of it. The whole point of adding it was to add a little bit of streaks running down the side of the tank. We don't want to remove everything. The main goal here is basically just to soften them, to blend them in a little bit, so they're not incredibly obvious. It's more of a subtle thing. Now we're going to add a little bit of road dust to the vehicle, and if you're not familiar with pigments and you don't want to make that huge cash investment in them, look towards Tamiya weathering sticks instead. They're not really true pigments. They're more like lipstick with just pigment material in them. They're really easy to use, and they only cost you, I think it's $5 for a stick. That'll last you a long time. As I said, it's kind of like a lipstick, but you don't want to just rub it on. Instead, put a little bit on your palette and add some water and make a thick wash. And with that wash, I'm applying that to all over the tracks, very heavily on the tracks and also the road wheels themselves. And let it dry, and it does take an effect a little bit similar to pigments. Not that same flat powdery look, but it's somewhat close to it. Also, they're much more durable than pigments, and you can put a flat varnish on top of them. And once it's dry, we just go back with a slightly dampened Q-tip, just dampen with water, and do any cleanup work as necessary on them to remove any blotches or any of the large areas, just like what we did with the washes previously. At this point, the tank has been flat varnished, but we need to go back and add a little bit of metallic sheen to the tracks and a few areas on the tank. For that, I'm using ground up graphite sticks, and I just dip my finger into the graphite. I need a little amount, and just rubbing it on the tracks, and just give it a little rub, and you'll get a nice little sheen off of it. It's a kind of a dark sheen, makes perfect for the tracks. I also do the same thing on some of the edges of the tank as well, the main body. And if for a game model, this works pretty well since it does not easily come off once it's applied. If you touch it, you may get a little graphite in your finger, but it won't come off the model itself. And touching it will just polish it more, actually. So it adds a good little touch to it, and it's very cheap. You can get graphite sticks for just a couple bucks. And with that, we are done with our Panther. So we have a pretty good looking model that did not, except for that very first part, did not use an airbrush on. Using an airbrush on it would have been immensely easier, and I do recommend getting an airbrush if you're interested in building models. The camo would have gone a lot faster, applying the gloss coat would have been a lot faster, the enamel wash would have been a lot faster. It's up to you if you want to make that initial investment. But going back to doing all this by hand was kind of difficult. It kind of was like, I had to relearn everything. Model came out pretty good, so you can get good results using using a regular brush, but an airbrush does make things so much better. The only issue here was the enamel can be slightly difficult on occasion to get rid of the gloss on it, and there is a little bit too much gloss. I didn't notice until I put this piece up on the turntable, so I'm gonna have to go back and hit it with some different type of matte varnish and then go back and touch up the graphite areas. But other than that, we're looking pretty good. And I know this was kind of an ode to airbrush, but you can work without one, but it does make your life easier. So if you want to get one, up to you, but you can do decent work without one. Anyway, enough rambling. Thanks for watching. See you next time.